What's new at Desmos session? I am super excited to walk everyone through some great features that we've worked on. I'm going to have a little bit of a sampling of some things from the past couple months since our last What's New session. And I hope you are all going to find them helpful and exciting and all of the above. I'm going to go through the features, do some short demos and some short notes about decisions we made regarding the product. And at the end, I'll probably open up some time for questions. And yeah, that's about it. Shall we? Let's dive in. Before I start demoing any features, I of course want to plug our help center. Everything that I talk about today will have detailed information contained in help.desmos.com if you're looking to find out more information about anything that I discuss today. Okay, let's dive in. As is custom, I'm going to start us with a bit of an appetizer before the main course. So let me share my demo window here. Sorry, folks. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Here it is. Okay. The first thing I'm going to show you is a beta feature that we recently released. Now, beta here means it is a initial release of a feature. It could be changed, could be removed in the future. There will be some functionality missing and some bugs that people might identify, but the point is for all of you to experience it and give us feedback so we can improve it. And that is our text-to-speech feature. It is accessible from the student homepage or student activity page rather, under the accessibility settings menu. You go ahead and you turn that checkbox on and you see this play bar come up on the screen. And from there, it is pretty straightforward. Let me make sure I'm sharing my sound. I am. And then
press play to watch a short animation. Then write a story about what you see.
That's about it. It will read the text that's available on the activity screen. And you have, of course, some speed controls here, so I can make it go twice as fast.
Press play to watch a short animation. Then write a story about what you see.
And I can play it again and pause at any time during the playback.
Press play to watch a short animation. Then write a story about what you see.
This is an excellent accessibility feature for any people using Desmos activities who might need text read to them. One quick note about this feature, because it is beta, it is only available to read note components. So it read the text that was contained within the note here. I've already seen a question about math type. It does not support math yet, and it doesn't support some of the other more complex components in this beta stage. Another thing to note is you'll see the progress bar goes by word.
Press play to watch a short animation. Then write a story about what you see.
That was the choice we made for this first attempt of text-to-speech, and you'll notice that it doesn't go second by second as a normal media playback feature might. Let us know if this works as you use it. Send feedback in to support at desmos.com. Let us know what you think about this feature. Again, it is available in the accessibility settings menu when you are a student working in an activity, and that is currently the only place you can access it. It is not currently possible yet to turn it on for students. But again, beta feature in the beginning stages. Okay, next appetizer, if you will, side salad, whatever you'd like, is degree mode in Activity Builder. So for people who are creating activities that contain evaluations of trigonometric functions or use computation layer that utilize evaluations requiring radians or degrees, or just graphs that might have those, we have implemented a degree to radian toggle in the Activity Builder setup details modal. So you see I have a couple graphs here that I've added, and there's also a math input. I'm currently in radians mode. So if I go into preview here and I take the sine of pi, I get 0, as I might have expected. I can, of course, switch this to degree mode. You'll see a quick warning, which I'll get into in just a moment, but I'll then type sine of pi, and it doesn't give me the same value because it's interpreting pi as a decimal value. This warning that popped up is an important thing to note about degree mode. the degree Radian toggle rather, is that the graphs or sketches, I have a graph here and I have a sketch with a graph background. The graphs and sketches that you add will keep the degree mode setting they had when they were added to the activity. In other words, if I added these graphs, which I did in the Radian setting, they are all going to evaluate and work in radians. But if I switch to degrees, which I just did, we show you a helpful warning here, and you're going to want to add new graphs to replace those if you'd like those graphs to match the overall activity setting. And once more, the degree Radian toggle applies to all graphs, sketches, math inputs, and computation layer globally for the activity. Okay, and you know what? I have a card sort screen here. Maybe I'll throw in one more thing. We now have bold and italics in card sort. And as you can see, they show up in preview here. So just another dynamic way to add engaging text in the cards you make for your card sort activities. Okay, that's about all we have for our first course. And now to move into the main part of our presentation today, two big features we've spent a lot of time working on over the past 6 weeks. The first of which is list comprehensions in the graphing calculator. I'm gonna head over to my other window here. Okay, I'm going to start by giving a preemptive shout out to Andrew Noft from our graph team who put together the demo graphs that I'm going to be walking through today. List comprehensions is a powerful new feature in the graphing calculator that allows you to generate new lists from existing lists. Those of you who are familiar with Python may be able to anticipate what I'm about to go into here. But if you're not familiar with lists in the first place in Desmos, I highly recommend going to our help center and searching for lists to find an interactive tour that will walk you through exactly how to create lists, how to manipulate them in the graphing calculator. I'll do a quick truncated version of that to introduce us for any who are unfamiliar. Let's say I want to plot a series of points all at the same time, and I know what the coordinates for those points are. I can start with a simple list with 3 values, call it A, make those values 1, 2, 3. I'll start with another list, same values, why not? And then I can simply put A, comma B to plot all those points. I now have 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3, 3, exactly as I'd hoped. But what if I wanted to plot the Cartesian product of these values? In other words, what if I wanted to plot every possible combination of points that can come from the values defined in these 2 lists? We can do that now with list comprehensions using the following syntax, which is also detailed in our help center. I can put everything in a list, the list brackets. I can define A, B, just as I did before, for A equals 1. Here's a handy list syntax. This is my favorite. I can put a dot, dot, dot there to define all the consecutive values from 1 to 3. And I'll do the same again for B. Now I have not just 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3, 3, but everything in between, every possible combination of the values 1 and 3 for X and Y, made possible by our list comprehensions feature. Here it is again. This is the demo that Andrew put together. So I'll go back to the lists. These are a few more points. We have the X value and the Y value. But now I want to graph every point where X comes from the list, big X, and Y comes from the list, little y. And using actions, I could quickly generate and see all of the values that were created once I implemented the list comprehension. So that is the very basic functionality of what is possible with list comprehensions. There are a ton of awesome things that are possible with this feature. And if anyone is interested in getting more advanced with list comprehension, maybe we could convince our graph team to do a session. I am very much limited in my ability as compared to the awesome Desmos graphics that we have here. One more thing I'd love to showcase about list comprehensions, which is now possible, is manipulating lists of polygons. Again, for those who do not know, I can define a polygon in Desmos with a series of points. I can say polygon I can say 1, 1. It's just going to be a line segment again. 2, 3. And there's my polygon. I can do the same thing if I define it by a list. There's my list, and then I just simply put polygon P. But what if I have a polygon I want to graph multiple times? I have the solution there. I'll walk through that again. Here we are. Here's a polygon. Now, I defined this polygon, or rather, Andrew defined this polygon, and I'll re-explain, as a series of points, x1, y1, defined by a table here, which you can add if you go to add table. And these points are movable, which is accessible through, you can long click on the color indicator here, or recently you can shift click to bring up the same style menu and make these points draggable. So now that this point is draggable, I can manipulate this polygon any which way I might like. But what I would like to do is create copies essentially of this polygon on each of the points that we're seeing on this graph paper here. And each of these points are defined up here by the list G, which you'll see has the same values that I defined in the previous demo when I was working through the Cartesian product. So how might we do that? Andrew was kind enough to show us how difficult it is to do it in the old method, where there's all kinds of math and functions that I don't understand, and then each polygon, has to be graphed independently with each of the individual values in the list G. Bit of a pain there, but now with list comprehensions, this can all be accomplished in a single line. I simply have to put polygon, and I want to graph a polygon at each point G. I'll call that G0. And I want to, let's add a transformation, a little scale factor to that polygon so it's a little bit smaller. And I want to do that for every value in G, for 1, all the way to the end. And just like that, I have the same polygon replicated as many times as I have points. Let's make it dance. How awesome is this, folks? So not only can you manipulate multiple points and create new lists from existing lists, but you can manipulate and perform operations on lists of polygons. Super, super exciting feature that was just released a couple of weeks ago. And I see we're typing out an answer to a question we just received, but I will shout it out for everyone as well. Where to find information on this new list comprehensions feature is within the lists article on help.desmos.com. It defines exactly how to write out the syntax for list comprehensions, as well as gives some examples for the different ways you can use those. Okay, I have one more exciting demo for you all today. And that is over in the activities world. So for those of you who run Desmos activities, I'm about to show you something that is going to blow you away. We now have multi-select for student responses in activities. Multi-select meaning that if I wanted to leave feedback to multiple students on a single activity at the same time, I can now select those students by clicking the checkbox by their names as shown. And all of a sudden, these responses are showing up in this new sidebar. I can go ahead and leave feedback to everyone. If I wanted to leave more than one message, I can hit send there. And if that's the last piece of feedback I'd like to leave, I can hit send and close to clear all of the snapshots that I have selected. These selected pieces of work also serve as snapshots. So, which is my favorite screen here, where there's a lot of different responses. We'll go with this one, sure. So this works for the large majority of components that are available in Activity Builder. I can do this with multiple choice. So if I find that 2 students have selected lane 3 as their response, and I want to provide feedback, I simply have to click on that single response, and I can provide a single message to every student that responded with that choice. And I can also combine that selected component with others on the same screen. And these selected pieces of work also serve as snapshots. For those of you who worked with snapshots in the past, you may remember that each response had a little camera icon, which is still available if we go into the student view for any response. There's your camera there, there's one there. But now if you'd like to do it all from the teacher view, you simply have to select the responses and you can present directly from the teacher tab. I can add my question here. And if I'd like, I can save it as an album over to the Snapshots tab. And I can also do that directly from the dropdown in the sidebar. Let's head over to the Snapshots tab and work with what I just snapshotted. So we have the work that I just presented from the teacher tab available as an album in the Snapshots tab. It has the question that I wrote in, and it has all the snapshots that I selected. I can drag these snapshots around to change this album. I can create a new one with the existing snapshots. I can go back, select some more work, save it, and do some more rearranging. I can rearrange the albums themselves if I'd like with another simple drag handle. I can duplicate the albums in the drop-down menu here. I'm actually not sure I want to have a duplicate, so I'll go ahead and I'll delete it. And I can, of course, as always, add my title or question from the drop-down as shown, or I can add it from the presentation view, as always. And that is the bulk of the changes that we've made to the new select flow in the dashboard. I'm seeing a few questions here, which I'll take a second to look through. Do students see all the snapshots when they receive the group feedback? Students do not see the snapshots, so that's a great question. I'll go into and I'll leave feedback to these two students that I've selected here. I'll hit send, and then I'll go into the student view. There's the feedback I left. I'll head over to the next student I left feedback to. And there's the feedback that I left. It'll go to each student individually, all from the same sidebar as shown. Another question I'm getting, is the feedback button on the lower left of the screen, lower right of the screen? Yeah, so when you select your responses to leave feedback, you will type into the dialog box on the lower right. Apologies if that wasn't showing in my share. And then you can hit send or send and close. And you can go into Periscope for, or rather the student view for any given student, and your feedback panel is available there as well. Does it push to student screens? Do snapshots push to student screens? Not yet. That is something that we are tossing around over here at Desmos Product to be able to present snapshots and have them show up directly on student screens. So thank you for bringing that up. We've heard it a couple times. We're very interested in it. A couple other notes I would like to make about the feedback snapshot select flow. Currently, card sort, geometry, and the student survey component are not selectable yet. We are working on those because we are trying to find a good way to have those components interact with the existing multi-select flow that we've implemented. There has also been a product recommendation where you'll notice if I go ahead and present these two snapshots here, that there's a periscope indicator missing where it is in the snapshots tab. That is something we're aware of as well, and we're working on for the next iteration of future improvements for the feedback snapshot feature. Okay, I'm gonna do one more scan for questions in the chat here. Yep, I see a feature request for making edits without reassigning the activity. Appreciate that. I've got that on my long to-do list as well. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So that was all of the features I wanted to demo with all of you today. I hope you enjoyed and find them all useful. Maybe I'll give it 5 or 10 minutes to collect some questions from folks on the call about anything that I went over today. I see one question in the chat. Can you share the syntax of that Polygon line? I will go back to my graph here. Okay, so here is the single line for duplicating the polygons for this particular instance. Again, these points on the grid were defined by a list G, and then the polygon itself was defined by a table, which of course can be added from the expression list. But here is the line, and maybe if you wanted to take a second, I can also copy. I don't know if I can copy paste it into the chat, but if you want to take a second and look at it, I'll walk through it from the beginning. I've put the polygon inside a list, and then for each element of the list, big G, I called that G0. With a transformation, a scale factor of 0.3 to make it a little bit smaller, I applied that polygon to each of the points in the list G for each value G0 from the beginning of the list to the end of the list, big G. Hopefully that was helpful. The video of the presentation will be available, I think, in just a week, as Sade mentioned earlier, on our Desmos YouTube channel. When sharing feedback with students, do they need to be logged in to see it, or can we post to Google Classroom, Gmail? Great question. So if you leave feedback to a particular student, they will be able to see it as long as they are part of the class or the single session that you have set up. If they are not an approved student, they will still be able to see feedback, but they will not have access to any of the social features, like seeing what other students said in response to particular prompts. And right now, this feedback feature does not integrate with Google Classroom. I'll take that as a feature request back to our product team if we'd like. All right, a question about syntax for lists. So if we want to just start with a simple list, I'll go back to my blank graph. You can create a list simply using the square brackets. You can also do it in the keypad here. So I have a square bracket. I can put my values there. I can also define it if I'd like ... to get a sequence of values for lists. Maybe I'll do one more cool thing here. If I wanted to get, let's say, every even number from 2 to 80, instead of typing every single number 2, 4, 6, 8, I can go 2, 4, ... 80. And all of a sudden I have a 40 element list with every number of the evens from 2 to 80. And then if I wanted to plot, I'll keep this list A. I'll create a new list B with the same values. And it's as simple as putting A, comma B to plot every point that is contained in those two lists. And again, the demo that I went through today with list comprehensions was the Cartesian product, which is not 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, as I just showed, but every possible combination of all the values for a given two lists. And that is shown right here. This same example is also in the Help Center. So if you'd like to go over there and copy and paste or work through that on your own, highly encourage that at help.desmos.com. Thank you for all the questions, folks. These are excellent. I'm looking for anything else in the chat or the Q&A panel here. Okay, looks like we might not have any more questions. I want to thank Yana and Sade from our support team for helping monitor the chat today and dropping all the relevant articles as we go. Seriously appreciative of you folks. And thank you all for joining today's What's New at Desmos session. Going to give you guys a little bit of time back for your afternoons or evenings. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next What's New at Desmos session. Desmos is constantly, and I mean constantly, working on new features all the time. So these What's New sessions will always have something new to talk about. Thank you all again for joining. Have a great afternoon or evening.